Hello besties, have you ever wondered what it would be like to hide your true face from the world every single day? What if the mask you wore wasn't just to hide your appearance, but your deepest, darkest secret? Welcome to all my returning and new subscribers. I love you all. Let's dive in. Life bustled in Umuachi town with a rhythm as lively as the beating of talking drums. Vendors lined the streets, their voices rising above the chatter of buyers haggling over wares. Children in uniforms hurried to school, their laughter mingling with the aroma of roasted corn and fried akara. But amidst the lively scene, one figure stood out, a girl with a mask. 15-year-old Ada was no ordinary teenager. Her mask, crafted from fabric and adorned with beads, wasn't a fashion statement or a playful accessory. It was her shield, her armor against a world that seemed intent on judging her for her face. Beneath the intricate designs of the mask lay a large birthmark that covered half of her face, a mark that had earned her the cruel nickname the Cursed Girl. As she walked to school, whispers followed her like shadows. Some stared openly, while others averted their gaze, pretending not to notice her. "What's behind the mask, Ada?" "A monster?" sneered Emeka, the class troublemaker, as she passed the school gate. Laughter erupted from his group of friends, their voices loud enough to sting but quiet enough to escape the notice of teachers. Ada kept her head down, her hands clutching her school bag. Each insult chipped away at her confidence, but she had learned to endure. Years of ridicule had taught her to keep her pain hidden, much like her face. Her only solace was Chioma, her best friend and her fiercest defender. Chioma's fiery personality often led to confrontations with the bullies, though Ada wished she wouldn't draw so much attention. "Ignore them, Chioma," Ada said softly one afternoon after Emeka's latest stunt, a crude drawing of a masked monster left on her desk. Chioma, tearing the paper to shreds, turned to her friend with fiery eyes. "How can you be so calm? Don't you want to fight back?" she demanded. Ada shrugged. "What's the point? They'll never change." But Chioma believed otherwise. She saw the brilliance in Ada that others refused to acknowledge, her sharp mind, her kind heart, and, most of all, her heavenly singing voice. "One day, they'll see you for who you really are," Chioma said firmly. Ada wanted to believe her, but the mirror at home told a different story. At night, Ada would stare at her reflection, her fingers tracing the edges of her mask. Mama Enne, her widowed mother and her rock, would often find her in these moments of despair. "Ada, my child, beauty isn't about what people see. It's about what shines from within," Mama Enne would say, her voice filled with wisdom. But Ada couldn't see the light her mother spoke of. All she saw was a mark she wished she could erase. Ada lay on her bed, clutching her mask as tears streamed down her face. "Will I ever be more than this?" she whispered into the darkness, her voice heavy with despair. The next day at school, Ada's routine humiliation took a sharp turn. During a morning assembly, the principal, Madame Mooka, spotted Ada in the crowd. Her sharp eyes narrowed at the sight of the mask. "You there? The girl in the mask. Step forward," she commanded. Ada froze as every head turned toward her. The murmurs grew louder, and even Chioma looked alarmed. Reluctantly, Ada stepped out of the line, her heart pounding in her chest. "What is the meaning of this?" Madame Mooka demanded, her voice cutting through the chatter. "Why are you wearing that thing to school?" Ada mumbled something about feeling unwell, but Madame Mooka wasn't convinced. "Remove it now. We don't allow such behavior here." Panic gripped Ada. Her hands trembled as they reached for the mask, but the weight of 100 eyes watching her was too much. Unable to bear it, she turned and ran. The assembly erupted into chaos as students whispered and speculated about the girl with the mask. Outside, Ada collapsed behind the school's garden, sobbing uncontrollably. Chioma found her there, wrapping her arms around her friend. "You don't have to face them," Chioma said gently, but her voice was tinged with frustration. "You're stronger than this, Ada. I wish you'd see that." At home, Mama Nne noticed Ada's swollen eyes but didn't press her. Instead, she told Ada a story of her own struggles, how she had been widowed young and left to raise a child alone. "People talked, Ada. They said I would fail, that I couldn't make it. But here we are. Let them talk. Their words don't define you." But Ada felt trapped. Even as she nodded at her mother's words, her heart remained heavy. The world seemed intent on seeing only her mask, never the person beneath it. And as the days passed, her isolation deepened. One afternoon, a new announcement on the school notice board caught Chioma's attention. It was a talent competition, with the winner receiving a scholarship to a prestigious secondary school. Chioma's mind raced. "Ada, this is it. Your voice could win this." Ada shook her head vehemently. "No, Chioma. I can't. Not like this." But Chioma wasn't ready to give up. She saw something in Ada that no one else did, and she was determined to make her friends see it too. Chioma wasn't one to back down from a challenge, especially when it came to helping her best friend. That evening, she showed up at Ada's house with a determined look and a plan. "We're entering that competition, Ada, and there's nothing you can say to stop me." Ada groaned, burying her face in her pillow. "Chioma, please. Can't you see I'm not ready for something like this?" Chioma sat on the edge of the bed, her tone softening. "Do you remember the first time I heard you sing? It was during a rainy afternoon, and everyone was stuck in class. You sang to calm us, and even the rain seemed to listen. You have a gift, Ada. Don't let it go to waste." Ada's lips quivered, but she said nothing. Deep down, she knew Chioma was right, but fear held her captive. Over the next few days, Chioma worked tirelessly to convince Ada to participate. She printed out the competition's registration form, wrote out lyrics, and even found an old guitar that belonged to her uncle. Slowly, Ada began to warm up to the idea. Her mother's encouraging words and Chioma's unyielding support started to chip away at her self-doubt. Practicing in secret became their routine. Late at night, with the world asleep, Ada would sing softly in her room while Chioma strummed the guitar. The music filled the small house, bringing smiles to Mama Nnea's face as she listened from her room. "You're improving, Ada," Chioma exclaimed one night after a flawless rendition of their chosen song. Ada smiled shyly, her mask lying beside her on the bed. For the first time in years, she felt a flicker of hope. The day of the competition arrived faster than Ada had anticipated. As they stood backstage, her nerves threatened to overwhelm her. "What if they laugh at me, Chioma? What if I fail?" Chioma took her hands and looked her in the eyes. "Let them laugh if they want. But when they hear you sing, they'll see the real Ada. I believe in you, and so does your mom. Now go show them who you are." With trembling legs, Ada stepped onto the stage, her mask still firmly in place. As the spotlight hit her, the audience fell silent. Taking a deep breath, she began to sing. Her voice, pure and soulful, filled the hall, silencing even her harshest critics. As the last note hung in the air, the crowd erupted into applause. For the first time, Ada felt seen, not for her mask or her birthmark, but for the beauty she had to offer. And in that moment, she realized she didn't need the mask to be strong. Ada's performance at the talent competition became the talk of the town. In the days that followed, the halls of Umuachi Secondary School buzzed with conversations about the girl in the mask whose voice had left the audience spellbound. Students who had once mocked her now approached her with admiration, their taunts replaced by curiosity and awe. Even Emeka, the class troublemaker, was unusually quiet, his usual jabs silenced by her powerful performance. At first, Ada wasn't sure how to feel about the sudden attention. Her mornings were now filled with classmates stopping her in the corridors to offer hesitant compliments or ask about her next performance. But while some seemed genuine, others made her uneasy. She couldn't help but wonder if their kindness was born from admiration or pity. Chioma, however, was ecstatic. "See? I told you they'd love you." "This is only the beginning, Ada," she said, grinning as they sat under the large mango tree in the schoolyard. "Now you can show them who you really are." But Ada wasn't convinced. The idea of removing her mask still terrified her. "They only liked my voice, Chioma," she said softly. "If they see my face, it'll all go back to the way it was." Chioma's smile faltered, but she didn't push. Instead, she decided to focus on helping her friend prepare for the next stage of the competition, which was set to take place in the city. "We'll take it one step at a time," she said, squeezing Ada's hand. That weekend, Ada and her mother traveled to the city for the competition. The venue was far grander than anything Ada had ever seen, with dazzling lights and a stage that seemed to stretch endlessly. As she sat backstage, her nerves returned with a vengeance. The other contestants, confident and stylish, whispered amongst themselves, occasionally casting curious glances her way. "Who's the girl in the mask?" one of them asked loudly, drawing laughter from the group. Ada's hands tightened around her song sheet, but before she could retreat into herself, Mama Enne placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You belong here, Ada," her mother said firmly. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." When it was her turn to perform, Ada stepped onto the stage, the bright lights blinding her momentarily. The murmurs in the audience grew louder as they noticed her mask, but as the first notes of her song filled the room, the whispers faded. Her voice was a force of nature, raw, emotive, and unyielding. It carried the weight of her struggles, her dreams, and her longing to be seen for who she truly was. By the time she finished, the audience was on their feet, their applause thundering through the hall. Among the crowd was a music producer who had been invited to judge the competition. Impressed by Ada's talent, he approached her afterward with an offer to mentor her. "You have a gift, young lady," he said warmly. "But if you want the world to embrace you, you must first embrace yourself." His words lingered in Ada's mind long after the event ended. That night, as she lay in bed, she stared at her mask resting on the bedside table. For the first time, she wondered if she could ever find the courage to live without it. The journey back to Umuachi was both exhilarating and nerve-wracking for Ada. While she was thrilled to have made it to the finals of the competition, the producer's words haunted her. Could she truly face the world without her mask? Back at school, the reactions to her success were overwhelming. Teachers praised her during assemblies, and her classmates treated her like a celebrity. Even Emeka, who had once led the charge in mocking her, approached her sheepishly. Ada. I just wanted to say, you were amazing," he muttered, scratching the back of his neck. Chioma, ever the optimist, saw the change in attitudes as a victory. "See? You're winning them over," she said as they walked home together. But Ada remained cautious. "It's easy to like someone when they're winning, Chioma. What happens when they see the rest of me?" A week later, the school organized a special assembly to celebrate Ada's achievement. The principal, Madame Ooka, invited her to perform for the entire school. The thought of singing without the supportive crowd from the competition terrified Ada, but Chioma and Mama Enne encouraged her to seize the moment. As she stood on the stage, her heart pounded in her chest. The auditorium was packed, and all eyes were on her. Taking a deep breath, she began to sing. This time, her performance was even more personal. She chose a song about self-acceptance and resilience, pouring her heart into every note. As she sang, she felt a surge of confidence she hadn't known she possessed. And then, something remarkable happened. Without thinking, Ada reached up and removed her mask. A collective gasp rippled through the audience as her birthmark was revealed. For a moment, there was silence, and Ada's heart sank. But then, the applause began, soft at first, then growing louder and louder until it filled the room. Tears streamed down Ada's face as she finished her song. She had done it. She had faced her fears and shown the world her true self. From that day forward, Ada's life changed. While not everyone accepted her immediately, she found strength in the people who did. The producer continued to mentor her, and her music gained recognition far beyond Umuachi. More importantly, Ada learned to see the beauty in herself, realizing that her worth wasn't tied to how others perceived her. Her journey inspired others in the community, especially those who had faced their own battles with self-esteem and acceptance. Ada became a symbol of resilience, proving that true beauty lies in embracing who you are. Ada performed at a national competition with her face unmasked and her heart unburdened. As she sings, the camera pans to Mama Enne and Chioma in the audience, their faces glowing with pride. True strength comes from embracing your uniqueness and facing the world with courage. Did Ada's story inspire you to embrace your uniqueness? Please like, share and subscribe for more interesting African folktales.